Hey guys, so this week I'm switching gears a little bit, going back to something we talked about a couple weeks ago, but still on point, right? So a couple weeks ago, we were talking about I mentioned about how a lot of people I've talked to are discouraged, disappointed, depressed, and then we talked about roots, and we talked about things taking a while, and what I've been doing, because I have all this free time now, right? Is I've been going through and looking up old message outlines and old stuff that I've put together, stuff that I've notes I've taken from messages I've heard from all these years of just compiled notes, outlines, folders, spiral notebooks, just notes I've taken from other people's messages, stuff I've put together that I've given here and there. And I've been going over notes and past stuff and just going over stuff. And I just felt led. I just felt led to go here because of some stuff that's going on with me, and it's still on point with a couple weeks ago when I was talking about a lot of people are just discouraged and depressed, and they're in this spot, and they're and that's where they're at, right? But it's still on point with the fact that we need to have our roots rooted in Christ, and it's still on point with the fact that it's going to take a while, and some things take longer than others, and it's nothing to feel bad about if this is a place that you are in, because the Lord is still doing something in you and through you, and it's still part of the process. But it's something that I deal with, that you deal with, we all deal with to a degree, and so that's what I want to talk about today. And it's the idea that sometimes, as people, we don't always feel completely together. Like we don't always feel. So sometimes we feel broken. Sometimes we feel screwed up. Sometimes we feel like we're not right. We don't have it all together. We're not. Sometimes we feel broken, right? Broken people. Sometimes it's our circumstances that come into play. Sometimes our past, our past hurts, past circumstances. Stuff from the past that come up, and it just erodes away at how we do things in the current. It can erode away at how we do things in the future. It can mess with us and scare us and cripple us. Just like the fear of inadequacies, the insecurities, just the way things always go, and it can mess with us and make us do things so in stupid ways, make us do things in ways that we would logically look at and say, that's dumb, I would never do it that way, but we do it that way because of the way that past stuff happens, and it'll stop us from stepping out and trying this new thing the Lord wants, or this new thing the Lord's brought to us, or whatever, because of fear, because of this discouragement, because of this inadequacy, because of this past hurt circumstance, whatever. Because we don't feel completely together. We feel messed up. We feel broken. There's something about us that's off, that's not right. And, it's a lot of people struggle with this in general for a long time. It's not just something that like you struggle with this and then you get over it. It's something that people struggle with this for years and years and years. I can relate to this. I know a lot of people that can also relate to this. And it's not something to be embarrassed of or ashamed of. This is a theme, of broken people that you see throughout the whole Bible. It is important that we grasp that. If you feel that way, you're not alone. I'm not alone. You're not alone. It's a theme that you read from cover to cover in the Bible. This theme of broken people. If we're honest with ourselves, we all feel that way at one time or another. First of all, I want to tell you that God wants to fix broken people if you feel that way. But he also uses that brokenness for a purpose. And even if it doesn't make sense at the time, or you don't understand the process, he wants to fix it. He wants to use it for his glory. There's a reason why he uses broken people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I love this story. Before I get into it, though, a little bit of a background story from 1 Samuel 20. A background story, David and Saul. David is being hunted by Saul, right? He's already been anointed by Samuel to be the next king. He's gotten wind of that, and he's feeling threatened because he's going to lose his place, right? Because David's been anointed. Jonathan is the son of King Saul, and so he's technically in line to be the next prince, but he knows that God has chosen David to be the next king, and Jonathan's okay with that. So Jonathan has the right spirit about it, the right attitude about it, and he's okay with it. But now, in that time, it was typical that when someone came into power and they were king, it was pretty much common. It was understood. It was expected that they would exterminate all the relatives and descendants of the former king. Just so that there was no threat to the throne, so that there was nobody that would be like, well, look, I'm next in line. So Jonathan went to David, and he asked for a covenant. He asked for a promise of David, basically to save his life, because he understood, hey, David, you're next. God has ordained this. God wants you to be next in line instead of me. Whatever. So can you save my life? And we see this in 1 Samuel 20, 14 through 17. It says, "But show me unfailing kindness like that of the Lord as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth." So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord call David's enemies to account." And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. So here, Jonathan is basically saying, he's making a promise to save. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. A lot of stuff's happened here. Again, just strictly more background story, just to make sense. A lot's happened. David is now on the throne. It's in the midst of one of the battles. Jonathan was slain, and Saul was slain. All of his brothers were slain. Something happened to Jonathan's son. Jonathan had a son by the name of Mephibosheth. It's a big name. I'm going to mess it up a lot probably, but Mephibosheth. And he was crippled by a fall. It's really important that you notice that, in the hustle and bustle as they're getting ready to run out, there was a fall. They dropped him. It was broken legs, crippled. He was crippled by a fall. It says in 2 Samuel 4:4, it says that there were some news, and that the news was the Philistines had conquered the Israelites in battle. So when all the people of Israel heard that, they got up and ran from the region where they lived, the towns where they lived. So this young boy, Mephibosheth, was crippled in his feet, probably around 5 years old, right? So you can read about that account in 2 Samuel 4:4. He was crippled in his feet. Think about this for a minute. He's probably about 5 years old, or a toddler age, roughly around a toddler age. That's about the age where kids start moving, kids start running, start climbing on everything. They're not just sitting and crawling and that's the age they begin to realize that they can move. They begin to realize they can do things, that they're mobile. They begin to realize that they can do whatever, and they're just scampering and scuttering. They're scuttering, I don't know, hurrying and hustling and just running every which way, but they're not sitting still. They realize they have legs, they realize they can move, and they're running from place to place. But in this case, however, as they're picking him up to run, to get away from this battle, they pick him up, they stumble, they drop him, and in the fall, he breaks his feet. And now the kingdom's overrun by Philistines. Maybe there wasn't enough time for the right medical attention. I don't know. Maybe it was the time period at the time, and the medical attention wasn't accurate. I don't know all the details, but whatever the reason was, his bones didn't set right at the time, without being properly tended to. They set in some crooked, deformed, messed up way, and in just this condition. And Mephibosheth grew up that way. So, he grows up, he just grows up and he's crippled. And so later on, more background story. Mephibosheth later on, he grows up and he moves to a part of Israel called Lo Debar, and he grew up maimed and broken in his feet, and he kind of stays off the radar until later on in the story where we're going to pick up. And you kind of don't, like, you read over it, you look over it, you don't think about it. He's not necessarily an important part of the story until later on. And it's 2 Samuel 9, 1 through 13 when you pick it back up. And right here, 2 Samuel 9, 1 through 13, it says, Dave, you read it. I'm not reading the scriptures. I'm giving you references, and I'm paraphrasing. But 2 Samuel 9, 1 through 13, David is now established as the king. He's now the uncontested king of not only Judah, but over Israel. And he's beginning to think, like, have I done everything I could to honor, those who've got me where I'm at? He's like sitting basking in the kingship, and like, have I done right by those that I need to do right by? Automatically, he starts to think about his friend Jonathan. Of course, Jonathan is dead at this point, but David still remembers that he made that covenant with Jonathan from before, and he's thinking, I've made a promise to take care of him and his family even after he's gone. I made that promise to Jonathan. Even after he's gone, I'm going to take care of his family. And all this time later, he's not even sure if Jonathan has any family. He's not kept up with. He doesn't even know, of Jonathan's family. He doesn't even know the state of Jonathan's family at this point, or what's even become of them. And so, in the coming and going between all the stuff with the war and the fights going on, the people of Saul and the house of David, through all this commotion, through all this busyness. See, like, we're in a place right now where we've stopped all this busyness, but in all this busyness, all this commotion, he wasn't even sure of the status of Jonathan's family situation, even though he had made a promise to Jonathan he was going to take care of his family. He's thinking about this. Well, so it goes on. David hears of Mephibosheth and calls him to the castle. That's in Samuel 9:6. Now, Mephibosheth is 2 Samuel 9:6. Now, Mephibosheth is probably, I could just imagine, he's been off the radar all this time. He knows at the time that technically by blood, he's in line to be the next prince, right? And he's called to the castle out of the blue for just no reason. He's probably thinking, this ain't going to be good for me. And all this time, I'm in the bloodline. I'm like the different regime. Like, he's probably calling me in because I'm a threat. And this is probably not good. If I was him, I probably wouldn't want to come in there. He's probably coming in expecting death at this point, thinking that David is looking at him as a threat to the throne in general. Because he's technically Saul's grandson, being Jonathan's son. So Mephibosheth comes in and he falls on his face immediately, hoping that his life is going to be spared. He just comes in and just falls right in his face. And David says to him, do not fear. He knew that Mephibosheth was afraid of death, right? But David says, do not fear, for I will show you kindness, not because you deserve it, but for Jonathan's sake. And I will restore to you all the land of Saul, and you shall eat bread at my table continually. Now, just take a second and think about this, because it's a beautiful view of forgiveness and acceptance. Just it's a side jaunt. It is a beautiful view, not because you deserve it, but but for Jonathan's sake. Like I will restore to you the land of Saul, and you shall eat bread at my table continually. Just a beautiful view of forgiveness and acceptance. Like here we have this crippled young prince. Technically, he's expecting to be executed because of the bloodline. Technically, he comes in, he's trembling before the king, and David says, you have nothing to fear. Though you may have been a threat in other cases, been deserving of death because of other circumstances, but I'm not. But then the king says, I'm not only going to let you live, I'm going to give you back everything that Saul had. I'm going to reward you. I'm going to get you an inheritance, and you're going to eat with me at my table, like you're one of my sons. Like, not only do you deserve death, but dude, I'm going to give you back everything you had and then some. And I just have to take a moment to acknowledge that, because there's a perfect picture of salvation right here, like what God did through Jesus Christ for us. So I don't want to miss that point right there. It's just a beautiful point of forgiveness and acceptance, and just what the cross meant, what Jesus, like what Jesus did for us, because we deserve death, right? But the point that I don't want to forget, I don't want to get off sidetracked on that. The point that I don't want you to forget is Mephibosheth was invited in even though he was broken, physically broken. And like him, we're all broken in some way, whether we acknowledge it, whether we stew on it, whether we focus on it or not. We're all defective in some way. There's something wrong with us. Either we see it, and if you don't, somebody else does. I guarantee it. Something's, the blanket statement is it's sin. It's sin. It's a blanket statement. For all have sinned and fallen short. The blanket statement is it's sin. Sin has broken us. But by the way, if you don't know this, like I just read, all have sinned and fallen short. We have all broken God's law. When you break God's law, you break yourself. The more we break it over the years, the more we crumble. The more we invest in it, the more we lose our investment, the more we lose part of ourselves. We've all fallen short. We've all sinned. We're all broken. Mephibosheth was lame in his feet physically. Here we see, so Mephibosheth comes in and he gets everything that was his father's. You and I get this great inheritance of a king. Not only forgives us when we deserve death, but he gives us an inheritance of a king. And then he says, you're going to eat at my table. That Luke 22:30, if you want to look that up. You need to look that up. Luke 22:30. So we are all like Mephibosheth. We're all broken. We're all crippled in our feet. In some form or fashion, we all need a crutch. I hate when people say, Jesus is my crutch. But we need Jesus. It's a dependency thing. We need him. He's not our crutch in the physical sense that we would look at other things as a crutch, but dude, I need Jesus. And so do you. And that's as simple as it goes. And the good news is that God accepts broken people like me and broken people like you. We, like Mephibosheth, are all broken. But we can come to him just as we are, just as broken as we are, and God still accepts us. He will not turn us away for being broken, because you're not too broken for God. Now, some of us don't know we're broken. Some of us know we're broken. Now, we've already established we're all broken. Problem is, some of us don't know it, and we've got to come to this place where we are aware. Some of us know. Some of us don't like things about us. We're insecure about some things, and and some of us we act and react like we're broken because of years of being broken, but we don't acknowledge that we're broken. And we've got to come to a place where we are aware of it so that we can recognize our brokenness, so that we can understand that God is the one that fixes broken people. When we humble ourselves and realize our brokenness, then God can come in and begin to fix us. But we must realize that we are all broken people. So often, and this is important, so often we put on a facade of perfection. We boast about our goodness like the Pharisees. And who is it that goes down to his house justified? It's the one that bows his head and says, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. He recognized he was broken, and Jesus said he went home forgiven. Now, this is important right here. It's all important. I don't know why I keep saying that, but some of us have broken hearts. It's not just a romantic thing. It's not just a romantic, fluffy, feel-good thing. Some of us have broken hearts, but oftentimes it's through disappointments. The reality of life has a way of not fulfilling dreams, right? Maybe it's because they're dreams that we had that were not for you, or dreams that we had that not necessarily, God has something better for you and you didn't realize it at the time. I don't understand why things do go the way that they do go, but I have to believe that there's something out there that, I don't know what God does all the time, but I know God knows better than I do. That's what I know. And we have to know that. We have to believe that. We have to profess that. We have to encourage each other that. Because the reality of life is that it has a way of not fulfilling our dreams, and it has a way of breaking our hearts and crushing our spirits and just destroying us if we don't deal with it properly. Sometimes there's a change in a course of our trajectory. So we change our career. Something goes wrong in a relationship. And people are left sad. They're left brokenhearted, and they're just destroyed. And so it's the way it is. And then if we don't acknowledge it, we react out of that brokenness for years and years and years and years, and we stay that way. But I'm telling you right now that a lot of us like to put on that facade, like I just read. There's that facade of perfection. It's a weakness to be broken, but God can't fix it unless it's broken. Unless you recognize it as broken and you give it to Him, He can't fix it unless you acknowledge that it's broken and you give it to Him to fix. If you keep saying, no, I'm fine, but yet you're not fine and you're reacting like you're fine, you'll never give it to Him to put it on the wheel to reshape. You'll never give it to Him to take care of it, because you're going to always hold on to it because you're fine, even though you're not fine, and you're acting like you're not fine, and you're reacting like you're not fine. And a lot of us need to remember that. And it's going to take a long time. And you're going to have strong roots to do that. And there's going to be days that you're going to wake up depressed. And it's right on point with what we've been talking about. But you have to focus on Him, and we have to acknowledge it, and we have to give it over to Him. Because God can heal broken hearts and crush spirits, and He can renew your mind, and He can take care of all that. In Isaiah 61:1, what was the principal ministry of Jesus? Look it up. Isaiah 61:1, Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted. Look it up. I'm not reading it for you, but I'm telling you, He came to heal the brokenhearted. And somebody said that we minister best after we're brokenhearted. And some of the most beautiful poems, the poetry, some of the best songs, have come from people who are writing from a brokenness, from a broken spirit or a broken heart, or a situation has left them broken. Some of those just come from the best, the situations, and they put into words like just a tremendous amount of emotion into these words after this situation has just destroyed them, and I'm not a gardener, I'm not a flowery person. I don't know a lot about planting. I'm learning a lot about it lately. I'm reading a lot about it like a dork. I'm telling you right now, there's a quote that I found, and it says, "The richest fragrance comes from the crushed flower." The richest fragrance comes from the crushed flower. Some are broken, and is demonstrated through depression. Not just brokenhearted, broken-minded. Some are broken, and the Lord can use that. The Lord picks broken people like me and broken people like you, not because, I always say He's got a sense of humor, not because it's funny to see us struggle. He picks it because when we rely on Him, and it's His strength through us that produces the outcome, then He's the one that gets the glory, because we couldn't do it without Him. It grows us and matures us, and it produces something greater in us as He fixes the brokennesses in us. But also, it helps us rely on Him, because we can understand that there was no way that we could have done that on our own. Some of us are dealing with some really real, big, honest things right now during this situation, whether we're stuck at home by ourselves, or whether we're dealing with health issues of a loved one, or whether we're just, whatever your circumstance. Some of us are dealing with some really real issues right now, and it's got us broken, it's got us seriously, overwhelmed with things. And that's okay, because the Lord is going to use that. I don't know how, and I don't want to pretend like I do, but he will, because that's what he does. That's what my God does. That's what God does. And I need to remember that, and I need to remind you that, and you need to remember that, and you need to remind me that, because that's what we're supposed to do. So just to kind of tie it up a little bit, one of the things that's really important to establish, and I've said it so many different ways, but to establish here is that we are broken. We've established that, right? We can come to the Lord whether we're broken, whether it's broken-minded, broken-hearted, broken-spirited, whether our health is broken, whatever it is broken, Jesus can help us in all those things. So what's next? Brokenness often leads to greatness with God's help. Think of it like this, if you're a Bible buff. If you're not, here's some stories, some examples, some biblical testimonies you can go and read in the Word. Joseph was thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and when he reaches the bottom and when he understands his brokenness, that's when God lifts him up and makes him a ruler of a great empire. Before Paul could bring the gospel to the Gentiles, God had to knock him off his horse on the way to Damascus, and he spent 3 days blinded. After that, then God could use him. Think about it like that. Sometimes when we're going through our lion's den situations or some storm that we're facing, and we wonder, why is the Lord allowing this? When we're crying out and arguing with him, driving down the road or in our rooms, in our prayer closets, whatever it is that we are talking to him, and we're crying out wondering, why is this situation? Why is this, why is this circumstance here? And it could be some crisis where you work, something in your family, health situation, whatever it is. Maybe God's saying, look, before I can remake it, before I can fix it, it's got to break. It's got to fall apart like this before I can put the pieces back together. Because that's what he does. Sin breaks it. Sin breaks it. We break it because of sin. But he allows it to be broken so that we realize our need for him. So we go to him and then he remakes it better than it was before. The Lord uses the broken to reach the broken. And that's the important thing. If you feel this way, look, don't quit. Don't give up. Keep doing your thing. You're never too little for God to use, but you might be too big for God to use. God uses the broken to reach the broken. Sometimes we think that our brokennesses and our experiences and our trials disqualify us. Sometimes we think that we're not good enough. Sometimes we think that we're just broken, right? But when we give our lives to the Lord, those are things that can be used by the Lord to reach others, because that's what he wants us to do. He calls us to him so that he can spend some time with us and he can love up on us. And as he's fixing us, he's got stuff for us to do. It's part of the process. That's how we relate to the world. It's how we relate to them, to be where they are, and also to come to him and then go back to where we were to show them who he is through us. Listen, I'm going to end with this. It takes, again, I'm not a gardener, not a farmer, but it takes broken soil to produce a crop, broken clouds to produce the rain, broken grain to make bread. God is able to mend broken hearts, broken homes, broken hopes, broken health, broken joy. It doesn't matter what it is. Jesus came to heal broken people. We're all broken somehow, all dysfunctional in some way. So that means that we are all included in that promise. I'm thankful for the good news. like of the gospel, that he heals us, and then he heals us, he calls us, he heals us, and then he uses us to help heal other broken people, because somewhere there was a broken person that worked through their brokenness to love up on me enough to let me see Christ through them, to get me to a place where I could experience him for myself. And now I need to recognize that so that I can, doesn't matter how I feel now it's my turn to remember that somebody feels like I feel some days. They felt like that, and I need to remember the Lord is working through me still, and on me and through me, and we need to go love the world. Doesn't matter necessarily. We're all broken. And that's what the Lord uses, is broken people like me and broken people like you. And he uses them to help heal other broken people. So I just want to encourage you, if you feel broken today, the Lord loves you. The Lord fixes broken people. He heals broken people. He came for broken people. You are not disqualified. I love you. I'm praying for you. You guys keep praying for me. I will see y'all next week. Take care.